is Pastor Nate Dubbs, and I'm once again happy to be hosting this episode of Unchained. This whole series is designed to bring hope and healing for those who are experiencing addiction, those who are in the process of trying to give addiction up, and also those who might have a family member who's affected by an addiction. We're so glad that you're able to tune in with us this evening. And once again, it's been fun each evening to see where people are watching from. We want to encourage you once again, if you want to put into the chat where you're watching from, just so we can see who's on there. We encourage you to do that. If it's up in East Ridge, or if you're in Red Bank, or here in Ottawa, Chattanooga, wherever it is, if you're watching right now live, we'd love for you to put that into the comment section so where we can see where you're watching from. We always check that later in the program. We wanted to share with you, if you haven't had a chance to do it yet, we want to encourage you to register for this. We share this every evening, that there's a link that you can click on. If you click on that link, it allows you to enter to win for a drawing this evening. And so if you click on that link and register, it'll allow us to send messages every evening reminding you to tune in for the rest of our programs. And it also enters you to be part of our drawing that will take place at the end of our program. You have to click that link tonight, every night that you want to be entered in the drawing. Our drawing, once again, is for this book from our presenter, Pastor Richie Halverson, called The Darkness Will Not Overcome. It's his story of how God helped him overcome an opioid addiction. We would love for you to read this story, and the one that we'll give you is signed by Richie. And so we want to make sure that you get this. So please click that registration link if you haven't yet, and be able to be entered for tonight's drawing, which we'll announce that at the end of our time here this evening. We also wanted to share that at the end of our time here, we will have a live interview here in just a moment, and then we'll have a teaching by Pastor Richie. After that, we'll have a question and answer time with our guest tonight. And in your chat or comment section, you can see that there's a link. Also in the description of the video tonight, you can see a link that allows you to click on it and ask questions that are anonymous that we can ask at the end of our time there. We ask, if possible, that you could use that link. We sometimes have been having a little bit of an issue trying to catch everything that goes into the comment section. And so if you could use that link, that would be the easiest ways for us to see your questions. So once again, we're so glad that you're able to be here on this journey for Unchained. At this time, I want to turn our time to one of my favorite parts of our program, and that's our interview time. It's a joy this evening to have here in our studio, Vicki McClanahan. Vicki, thanks so much for joining us this evening.
It's good to be here.
Thank you so much. Vicki, tell us just a little bit about yourself, what you're up to in life now.
I'm retired.
Well, very good. And how's retirement going?
I felt lost at first, but I'm enjoying it. It's given me time to do a lot of reading and spending time with family. So it's been good.
I'm glad to hear that. We're so glad that you're able to be here to share a little bit of your story. I've enjoyed being able to talk with you just a little bit here and to get some more of the details. And so we're going to dive right into your story tonight. You've struggled with codependency and relationship addictions throughout your life. And for our viewers who are watching here, this is taking a little bit of a different turn. I know you've been following along with our episodes as well. Up until this point, we've been talking more about substances that people have been addicted to. And then, of course, last night with Dory, we were able to hear a story of a mother's perspective. But tonight we're shifting away from drugs and alcohol for tonight at least, to talk about your addiction and to codependency and relationships. And I appreciate you being able to bring this different angle to this discussion.
Yeah, it is different. Because it's not trying to stay away from a substance. So we need relationships. It's kind of like food. We need food.
That's right.
But we have to choose healthy food in order to be healthy. So we need healthy relationships.
That's well said.
Yeah.
Well, Vicki, could you just share a little bit? Your story is impacted by your mom's story. Could you start by sharing just a little bit about the situation you were born into? Because it starts painting the picture of how this particular chain kind of developed in your life. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, my mom was 16 when she eloped with my dad. And they were married for about 9 months when my grandparents sent for her. They had found out that my dad had previously married.
And that's not something that your mom knew.
She did not know. He did not tell anyone. And so but they didn't tell her that at the time. They said, your grandmother's sick, you need to come home. So she went home, and then she was told. They did not allow my dad to come see her. They even had him put in jail at one point. My mom was devastated, being told that her husband had been married before and she's pregnant, and this was a hard time for her.
I bet. And pregnant with you?
Yes.
Pregnant
with you.
with
me. So, I think my issues probably started from the womb.
Just all the way back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
And your story goes on. As a little girl, life became very confusing. Can you share a little bit about some of that confusion that you experienced involving the confusion around your stepdad?
Yeah. I was about 1.5 years old when my mom remarried. He was, my grandfather didn't like him. He had good reason not to. My stepdad was, he was mean-spirited, he was belligerent, but he was my daddy. I mean, I was so young, they had me call him daddy, so I did. I was scared of him, but I loved him all at the same time. There was a bond.
A little child wants to love their parents.
Yeah, and they want the parent to love them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yet it's tragically, the kind of love that you saw modeled and experienced was not healthy.
No, he was unkind to my mom. And she had very gentle lady, and she had a hard time standing up to him. And so she finally did leave. But him being in her life and all that happened there, it cemented this lie inside of me that it was okay for a man to abuse a woman.
At such a young age.
Yeah, at a young age.
In those early childhood lies that come into our hearts sometimes, they can be there without us even knowing that they exist for many years sometimes.
Yeah.
They work their way in, and they can set off kind of a whole domino effect of things in our life. And indeed, that's what kind of started happening in your life. This lie started to cause unfortunate fruit coming into your life.
Well, and then the lies kept growing because then she eventually left him, taking my brothers and me to live with her parents.
And the brothers were from your mom and the stepdad?
Yes, they were my half-brothers.
Yes.
They were just 2 and 3 years younger than me. When my dad would come and pick, well, I would say us. I thought he would be picking us up, but he really could only pick my brothers up. Right. Since I was not his child, which I didn't know at the time, I couldn't understand why I couldn't go with them. And there was one time when I wanted to go so badly with them because they were part of my family too. And the person who was taking care of my brothers and me said, no, you can't go. He's not your daddy. And
which just didn't make any sense to you,
no,
right?
No, that was very confusing.
As a young child, you just couldn't understand, why are my brothers going, but I can't. That's just a lot to try to understand as a little one.
So she put me in a bedroom and closed the door, and I can still see the car driving down the long drive away, and that was pretty painful.
Yeah, I can just imagine how that would be so difficult to just have that kind of unspoken thing. Why can I not be with my daddy?
Yeah.
And for that to just be going through you through early childhood. And so you shared that as you got into your teen years, that you continued to experience some challenges.
Yeah. My mom eventually moved to Memphis and took my brothers and me with her. It was a very different life there, and she was drinking and smoking and things like that. And so by the time that I was 16, I was also drinking and
Yeah.
smoking and using drugs.
Yeah.
I remember when I was about 23, I went to a party and I took a bottle of wine with me.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of people there, a lot of alcoholic drinks. So they didn't need any of my wine, so I drank the whole bottle all by myself. What was so strange is it was like I hadn't drank anything.
You didn't feel the effects of it because you were so used to drinking
Yeah.
at that point.
And so I drove home thinking, wow, I'm so empty inside. I was able to sense the emptiness. And it occurred to me, and I'm sure it was the Holy Spirit telling me, you need God. And so I remember saying a prayer, Lord, if you're really up there, just give me the peace that I need to fill this emptiness.
What happened?
Oh, well, so I had a roommate, and she and I went to visit this church, and big church. So we sat in the balcony, and the pastor was talking about the importance of not being proud,
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of your pride.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, I've been in the world all my life, and pride was a good thing.
It was like a virtue. Why would you want to get rid of pride?
It's a cool thing.
Yes.
So I thought, well, I guess I can't be a Christian.
It didn't feel like a fit for you at that point.
It didn't.
Well, so you continued with an emptiness with you for some time, and then when did you feel like things kind of started to turn a corner? When did you feel like you kind of hit rock bottom?
So I continued on with that lifestyle, and I was dating this one guy, and we didn't date for too very long, and he decided he wanted to just be friends, and so we parted ways. Then I discovered I was pregnant.
With his child?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I first discovered it, I was really excited. Even though I wasn't in a good place, I was 24 at that time. So this was only a year later after I prayed that prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really hard to think about having a child alone.
I'm sure.
So my mom informed me that having a child out of wedlock would be an imposition to the family. So she took me to get an abortion, and it wasn't an easy thing. Deep down inside of me, I felt like how can I do this to my child? And so I felt like I was murdering my child, and so it was really hard. Physically hard too.
Yes.
But emotionally it was hard. I couldn't talk to anyone about it. There was a lot of shame in that.
Yes.
It was hard to see pregnant women. And so I avoided pregnant women for a while. It took a while to get beyond that. But the thing about it is it brought me to my knees. And it caused me to want to look for God again.
So that very painful situation that you wish you didn't have to go through ended up being something that really got your heart searching for that thing, or as we know now, that someone, that God, that would fill that kind of emptiness that you had.
Well, that's true. And I realized that, pride was not standing in the way this time.
Yes.
So I went searching for a church, and and that's when I found a church, the Adventist church, which made so much sense to me. And I became a Christian. But you know, because of my past, it took a lot to get me healthy.
And Vicki, that's one of the reasons we were just talking before we went live tonight.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the parts of your story that I'd like to kind of turn to now. We were talking earlier about how sometimes when we come to Christ, things like, you hear stories sometimes and how there's a turning point, and then things seem to fall into place sometimes kind of quickly, within months perhaps. But for others of us, as we work to kind of get the chains that hold us back, shaking them free can take decades sometimes.
It can.
And these chains of codependency and some unhealthy relationship tendencies, they didn't, even though your relationship with Christ was becoming more and more real, there were still these deep lies in your heart that continued to work their way out. Can you share just a little bit more about what that period of your life was like?
So I want to say too that, it was a journey. It was a journey. I was married to my daughter's father for 17 years. We got married in the church before we divorced in January of 1999. His work required a lot of travel. There was something deep inside of me that said that I probably would not need to be married to someone who traveled, but he wasn't married when we first got married. That happened later on.
Okay.
But when I would take him to the airport, I started having flashbacks of my stepdad leaving with my brothers.
Visions of that car driving away down the roadway.
I would go into a depression every time he left. And so, and he loved his job, which was good. So there was some difficulties there. The only way that I could handle it at the time was I had to build a wall around my heart in order to not miss him so much.
Because of this chain of this past pain that you had from your early childhood, there was a connection that perhaps you couldn't even fully understand or explain at the time, but you just realized you started building an emotional barrier between you and your husband. Yeah.
And so about 15 years later, all the feelings were gone. We ended up getting a divorce. My girls were 13 and 16. We had 2 daughters. I led them down road of survival. So we were in a survival mode. I had a dream one time during that time that I was in the car driving and they were with me. They were both in the front seat. And all of a sudden the steering wheel wasn't working and I couldn't guide the car. It was just all over the place. And I woke up thinking, this is my life. This is how I'm leading my children. That's not good. And so I had a lot of counseling.
So you started to seek out some counseling. Was that a positive experience for you?
It was a positive experience. Another thing too is I knew that one of them had graduated and moved on. The other one was about to graduate, and I was feeling scared of being by myself. And so I married someone who was a lot like my stepdad, except he went to church. So that was we were only married for 3 years. That was probably not the best idea, but I had desperately wanted my stepfather's love and approval, and it was kind of like that with the second husband, and just never got it.
So it was just almost like a hopeless cause. It felt like you wanted something from him that he just wasn't going to be able to provide. He wasn't giving, and in some ways, you're projecting a little bit of your childhood, and it was probably confusing for both of you to a degree.
Yeah, it was a painful time.
Yes. You shared that the second marriage ended, and it was a little bit later. You said that you had continued to you had been in some counseling already. You'd been through some 12-step programs, and you've shared that a major source of your growth came from your connection to a program called Celebrate Recovery.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I do want to say here about the two marriages that I was in, that they were not as important, or me talking about all the details there, not as important as my attitude and my behaviors while I was in each one of those marriages. It became evident to me that after my second marriage, it occurred to me I needed help, that the common denominator was me.
What was that realization like for you to hit?
You know, it was liberating.
It was a liberating feeling.
Yeah, it was liberating.
You felt like you had something that you could actually work on at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that there could be some answers out there. So I decided to check out, well, I had been reading some material on secular 12-step programs, but I knew that my higher power needed to be Jesus Christ. So Celebrate Recovery was just opening up in one of our churches, and so I started going. And it was a lifesaver, working the 12 steps. It was so important to me. And the thing is, Celebrate Recovery, you go in and there's, the larger group, and you hear testimonies and there's singing, and that's great. And then you break off into gender-specific groups, and these are small groups. So it makes them safe to be able to share. To be even safer, you can go on another night to a closed group, and that's where they really hit the 12 steps. You work them one at a time. There are workbooks for that. That was the life changer.
So going through that kind of allowed the processing to take place for you to feel like you were finally able to just let those chains of kind of being addicted to codependency and some of that relational dysfunction, it started to fall away.
Well, for one thing, step 3, where you had to give your will and all that over to God, to Jesus, that was hard.
I bet.
And it was hard, I think, because if you never had complete trust in anyone before, I thought I trusted Jesus, but going through that, I realized that my trust in Jesus was not that strong. So that was something that I needed to think about and work on, and ask God's help. And then the 4th step, where you write down who's hurt you. You go back into childhood. And when I did that, the weeping, I just wept. And during the weeping, I could feel the Holy Spirit hugging my heart.
I love to hear that.
And so the painful tears turned into tears of joy. And I knew that I could do that because I didn't have to do it by myself.
And so that group aspect, both the relationship with Christ that was just continuing to grow, your dependency on Christ, and then also just the community that you experienced with your group were just transformational for you.
They were a safe group. It is important to get with safe people when you're going through this.
I'm sure. In fact, it was such a big deal that you ended up helping with this
Yeah.
group later on in life.
Yeah, so, then step 5 is where you start thinking about the people that you hurt and going to them and apologizing to them and saying, will you forgive me? Step 12, by the time I made it to step 12, all the steps were necessary.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I made it to step 12, it's about giving back.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to give back. By then, I was so excited about the things that I was learning and the things that Jesus was lifting out of me that were painful. I wanted to help other people.
You wanted other people to have that freedom.
Yeah. So I became, this was 2007. I started going to Celebrate Recovery in 2006. By 2007, I was facilitating
Helping give back.
groups. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
And then that transferred over to the church and doing recovery Sabbath school classes.
Yes.
And helping facilitate in those. And I felt that's my purpose. I understood the pain of separation and understood the shame of so many things. And
Vicki, I love your story because it just shows, even like I said, I think it kind of highlights that even as we walk with Christ, sometimes we're not even aware of everything that we need to be healed of. Now, some of us know exactly what's in our hearts and what we're praying to be healed of, but sometimes it can be a journey that we walk with Him, and He just, in some ways, I wonder if it's some gentleness on His side that He just slowly reveals, and we walk with Him, and He gains our trust more and more. And I love about your story that as you continue to journey with Christ, that more and more freedom came to you.
Yeah, and going over this again, it's been a while since I've been over this testimony. The song Gentle Healer by Michael Card has been in my mind, singing it over and over again, because Jesus is a gentle healer. There are a couple of verses from Scripture that I would like to So one of the things that I had to learn about was my character defects. Those were very important, because if we don't realize that our character defects and how they hold us back in relationships, they'll keep holding us back. So I discovered character defects. In Jeremiah 18:8, God tells Jeremiah, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand. So God was able to take me and help me work through things like self-hatred and codependency, unforgiveness, defensiveness. Those are things that I needed to work through.
He was able to form something new in your life.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. Vicki, at the end of our program, what we're going to do now is we'll turn our attention to the teaching video, and what we'll do is we'll come back for a Q&A time, and we'll be sure to ask you to highlight a couple more of those verses that you share. And for those watching, well, first of all, Vicki, thank you so much for sharing your story of how God has been gently leading you these many years. He's a good Savior.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you've been able to find freedom walking with Him. So thank you for sharing your story this evening. We'll look forward to hearing some more thoughts about these verses when we come back after the teaching time.
Okay, thanks.
For those of you who are watching, we're going to turn our time in just a moment to our teaching portion of the program with a message from Pastor Richie Halverson. I just want to remind you, as you're watching this, perhaps as you've heard Vicki share some of her story, some questions have come to mind. Once again, if you have questions throughout, please use the form in the video description link, and you can ask questions anonymously for our time at the end here. I look forward to picking up my conversation with Vicki again there. But before we do that, we want to turn our time to the teaching portion with Pastor Richie. We'll enjoy that now.
So far, we've seen to live an unchained life, we need to break through the denial with honesty. We've got to break through unbelief with hope and belief. We have to break through the insanity with faith and willingness. And now we're going to look at the importance of breaking through the fear with courage. There is an acronym for the word fear. Forget everything and run, or face everything and recover. Everybody has that choice right now. We either allow the fear to forget everything and run away, or face everything and recover. Nothing keeps us chained to addiction and dysfunction like fear. In every of the Gospels, there is a story that is recorded, several scenes, in fact, of the disciples on the Sea of Galilee in a storm, and they're always scared to death. Matthew, the 14th chapter, verse 24, it says, the disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. Have you been fighting heavy waves this last week, this last year? You are not alone. You see, living an unchained life doesn't mean no storms. It just means that we no longer have to go through the storms alone. 3 points we're going to learn today that can break through our fear. 1, God speaks to the storm that you are in. He speaks to you in the storm, and God speaks to the storm that is in you. All right? Nothing more than that. The voice in the storm can give you courage to make it through your storm. First, let's look at He speaks to the storm you are in. In Luke 8:22, it says, one day He got into a boat with His disciples, and He said to them, let us go across to the other side of the lake. And so they set out. Jesus wants to take you to the other side. He wants to take you from your current situation, your current problem, to the other side. He wants to take you to that next place of freedom and peace. But the only way He can do that is if you're willing to let go of the safety of the seashore. You may feel safer docked at the harbor, but the last time I checked, boats were made for sailing. Man, life was made for living. God made you for something more than being chained to something. And for too long, we've allowed fear to keep us locked up and landlocked and keeping us from going where God wants to take us. Listen to me. If God tells you to go over, you can never go under. Luke 8:23, as they sailed and fell asleep, and a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. The Sea of Galilee is still known for storms that will show up suddenly, going from smooth and sunny to rough and stormy. You know what? That sounds a lot like life, doesn't it? The bad diagnosis, the affair that you found out about, the arrest, the lost job, the lost home, panic attack, depression. In an instant, our world gets turned upside down and we desperately try to hold it together, but we can't. We're just like these disciples. We're trying to stay afloat, but we're taking on too much water in our boat. And so they went, in Luke 8:24, they went and woke him saying, Master, Master, we are perishing. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. And so they wake Jesus up, Luke 8:24, and he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was calm. Friends, it is safer in the storm with God than to stay on the shore without him. To live a more fulfilling life, it is better to go through the storm with God than to stay on the shore alone. Mark 4:39 records Jesus saying, peace be still. But when you look at what it actually says there, Jesus was telling the storm to shut up. You see, when Jesus speaks up, the storm shuts up. Mark 4:39, it says that the wind ceased and there was a great calm. God wants you to experience great calm, great courage, a great life, not just any life. The next time a storm shows up, ask God to tell it to shut up. The depression, the bad mood, the addiction, the bill collectors. You know, after I got clean, the wreckage from my stormy addiction had left all kinds of damage. And it got so overwhelming. Man, I had a stack of bills that started piling up on the counter in my kitchen. I felt like I was drowning. I felt like these disciples. And so I went to my sponsor and I told him about it. I said, man, I'm getting overwhelmed with these bills that I'm going to have to pay. And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, Richie, you do what you can and you give the rest to God and He'll do what He can. And if seeing the bills is overwhelming, Richie, just throw them away. Don't worry, they'll send you another one next month. And that's what I did, man. I just threw them away. And hey, they did, right on time, sent me another bill next month. And I just worked on one bill at a time, until, hallelujah, man, I paid all those bills off. You need to know, friends, that you have a power in your corner that is bigger than your problems. Let Him speak to the storm you are in right now. Don't let the fear overwhelm you. Let Him speak to the storm. Let Him tell your storm to shut up, and it'll listen up. Second point, to have courage, is God speaks to you in the storm. So He speaks to the storm you are in, and now He speaks to you in the storm. We have the same disciples. They're on the same body of water, only this time Jesus sends them on by themselves. They think that they're all alone. It says, when evening came, the boat was out on the sea. Jesus was alone on the land. Now, according to Matthew and John, Jesus goes into the mountain to pray when He sends the disciples on. So from the disciples' perspective, Jesus is nowhere around. But check it out. In verse 48 of Mark, it says, He saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against Him. You see, just because you can't see God doesn't mean God can't see you. From the disciples' perspective, they were alone. But from God's perspective, He had never taken His eyes off the disciples. You see, God sees when the storms in your life get rough, and that's when He shows up. According to verse 48, the reason making headway was painful is because the wind was against Him. Sometimes life, the wind is against you. It feels like the whole world is out to get you. John tells us in his gospel that the disciples have to start rowing. Listen to me. When the wind starts working against you, taking you in a direction you know you don't want to go, that's your cue to start rowing too. When it's not as easy to go to meetings as it once was, that's your cue to start rowing. When it's harder to keep praying, you don't feel like your prayers are making it past the ceiling, man, that's your cue to start praying. The harder things get, the more we need to be rowing. When someone invites you to drinks after work, don't go with them. Don't go with the flow. You got to start rowing. When old behaviors start returning, that's your cue to start rowing. You know, sometimes recovery comes to us easy. There's certain things that are like, hey, this is great. I love it. You know, a lot of people would come up to me, you know, they had 30 days clean. They're like, I love life. I want to hear you say that after 10 years clean. You know, sometimes life is easy. Sometimes it isn't. Other times it's like the wind is against us. And that's when you've got to start rowing. We are responsible for our own life. You are responsible, so start rowing. We are a product of our own decisions. Start rowing. Recovery is hard work. Breaking chains isn't easy, but let me tell you, it's worth it. What are you waiting for? It's time to start rowing. Don't let the unexpected problems and fears of life keep you from living an unchained life. When the going gets tough, the tough get rowing. You do what you can, and then let God do what He can. Mark 6:48, it says that it was about the fourth watch of the night, and He came to them walking on the sea. So check this out. The waves are crashing, but Jesus is strolling. You need to know that when the storm is crazy, God is not crazy. When the world seems out of control, God is not out of control. Mark 6:49-50, it says, but when they saw Him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw Him and were terrified. But immediately He spoke to them and said, take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. Check it out. Jesus speaks to you in the storm. What does he say? His words are, don't be afraid. Take courage. I am here. The spiritual principle that breaks through the chain of fear is courage. Don't be afraid. Take courage. I am here. You don't know how you're ever going to get clean? Don't be afraid. Take courage. God is there. You don't know how you're ever going to be able to salvage your marriage? Don't be afraid. Take courage. God is there. You don't know how you're going to pay that rent? Don't be afraid. Take courage. God is there. You see, he speaks to you in the storm. Matthew 14:28 says, and Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. You see, Peter's being tossed back and forth on the boat, but he sees Jesus walking on the waves. You see, Peter wants to do to the waves what Jesus is doing. Peter wants to walk on his storm like Jesus is walking on this storm. And check it out. Jesus speaks to him and he says, come. So Peter got out of the boat and he walked on the water and he came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. Fear never completely goes away. It always can show up at unexpected times and unexpected places. When he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. You see, when Peter stopped focusing on his goal and he started focusing on his problem, when he started taking his eyes off of his goal and he started focusing on his opposition, that's when he started sinking. Keep your eyes off the problem and get them on the solution. Take your eyes off what's going wrong with your life and focus on what's going right with your life. You see, courage is not the absence of fear. It's walking through the fear. So it doesn't mean that the fear goes away. It's just you keep moving forward in spite of the fear. You know, people often kind of look down at Peter when he sinks. You know, they're just like, oh, there that Peter goes again. But you know what? At least Peter got out of the boat. You know, the Bible doesn't say how many steps Peter took on the water, but the Bible does say Peter walked on the water. I don't see the Bible saying that about anyone else. You see, there are those who would like to criticize Peter for sinking, but they never started walking. There are those who will criticize you for your recovery. They will criticize you for your belief. They're going to criticize you for your faith. They're going to criticize you for trying to live a life unchained. But listen, they were too scared to get out of the boat. And so to take the attention off of them, they're just going to sit there and criticize you. When the haters start hating, that's your cue to keep walking. You know what? I may not have walked as much as I would have liked to have walked, but at least I walked a little. You haven't walked at all. And you know what? It actually never says that Peter sank. In Matthew 14:30, it says, beginning to sink, he cried out. There is a big difference between almost sinking and being sunk. There's a big difference between almost using and using. There's a big difference between almost cheating and cheating. So the moment you start sinking, do what Peter did. He cried out, Lord, save me. When you start craving, cry out, God, save me. When you start wanting to use, call your sponsor and say, save me. When you want to start spending, don't wait until you're in the mall to say, Lord, save me. Say, Lord, save me when you're getting into your car to drive to the mall. When you start resenting, cry out, Lord, save me. Shout, save me, the second you start sinking. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. And I love it. Matthew 14:31 says Jesus immediately. You see, when we call out to God, help always comes. Not always the way we want it to come, but always the way we need it to come. Matthew 14:31 saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Now, what's interesting about this is when you read the actual Greek, the phrase to him is not there. Now, I'm sure the translators, they're a lot smarter than I am, and they probably know what they're doing when they say that Jesus is directing this at Peter. But you know what? Maybe, just maybe, Jesus wasn't talking to Peter. In my kind of cynical mind, I envision Jesus as he's reaching down to help Peter, who actually did walk on the water. He's actually looking at the other 11 still sitting on the boat. Oh, you of little faith. I mean, at least Peter got out of the boat and walked a little. Friends, it's better to try and fail than to never try at all. I have never met anyone who regretted attempting something courageous, even when they failed at it. The greatest regret people have in life is that they never tried at all. You see, it's usually from our failures that we learn. Often we look down at failures, like failures are so terrible. We demonize failures. Let me tell you, failure isn't fun, but failure is absolutely necessary because it's usually from our failures that we learn what to do next time. It's usually from our failures that we learn, you know what, I can't take my eyes off Jesus. Jesus speaks to the storm you are in. He speaks to you in the storm. Last point, to give you unbelievable courage to break the chain of fear, is Jesus speaks to the storm that is in you. You know what? The worst storms I have ever faced in my life are the storms that are on the inside. The worst storms you will ever face are the ones. We are our own worst enemies. Nobody can kick us like we can kick ourselves. Let me tell you, your addiction will never stop coming at you. Your pride will never stop trying to get back in there. Your control problem will never stop coming at you. I often hear people in recovery say, you know what, my disease is outside these rooms doing push-ups, waiting, just waiting for when I'll let down my guard. Addiction will come at you with everything that it's got. The enemy will come at you when you least expect it, trying to overwhelm you with fear. He'll try to rob you of perspective. Man, in 1 John 3:20, it says our own heart condemns us. You know what? We can't always trust our feelings. Often our own feelings work against us. Suddenly, our perspective is messed up. Fear starts taking over our lives. Old unhealthy ones, new attitudes quickly replaced by old familiar ones. And suddenly we realize addiction is trying to drown you. And that's when you need to listen to God's voice speaking to the storm that is in you. Isaiah 59:19, it says that when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against him. In ancient times, a standard was a flag, and it was actually used to communicate during a battle. It communicated this basic message: your king is alive, keep marching, we're still fighting, move forward, and victory will be ours. In the storms of life, when the enemy comes in like a flood, I want you to remember your standard. The standard of the cross and an empty tomb. You see, the empty tomb, the resurrection is a promise that your worst day is never your last day. Our standard communicates the king is alive, keep marching, keep fighting. Victory is ours because victory was his. You see, the only storm that could have ever really destroyed you, Jesus let kill him on Calvary. Which means no matter how rough the storms in your life get, one thing's for sure, it cannot destroy you forever. Stop letting the chain of fear keep you from leaving the shore. No matter how bad the storm is, it is better on the other side with Jesus. No matter how rough the storm gets, remember the voice in the storm to have courage to push through the fear. Psalms 93:4 says, mightier than the raging of the seas, mightier than the breakers on the shore, the Lord above is mightier than all of these.
Hey, welcome back. We're so glad that you're able to hear that message from Pastor Richie. And Pastor Richie, thanks so much for sharing these messages with us each and every night. It's such a blessing to be able to understand how we can find freedom from the things that enchain us. And so at this point, we're going to turn our attention to our Q&A time back here with Vicki. Vicki, once again, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We have a few questions that we wanted to dive in and share with you. First of all, as we were finishing our interview, you said that there was a verse that was really meaningful to us.
Yeah.
I wonder, would you mind sharing that verse with us
Yes.
before we move into our other questions?
Yeah. Jeremiah 17:7. and 8 says, "Blessed are those who trust in the Lord and have made the Lord their hope and confidence. They're like trees planted along a riverbank with roots that reach deep into the water. Such trees are not bothered by the heat or worried by long months of drought." And that's kind of what we have to be when we're going through recovery. We got to stay with it, and stay in Scripture too really helps too. The Psalms are a wonderful place to go.
That's good. That's good practical advice, and that actually leads us right into the next question that we have. As I shared as we were starting our interview time, one of the things that I think is really meaningful that people can many people I think can relate to about your story is that your recovery happened over a period of many years, really.
Yes.
And there was just kind of greater and greater revelation of what could be recovered from in some ways. And so the question I have is, what advice do you have for someone who's finding themselves in a long road of recovery?
So one of the things that first thing I had to do was open myself up, allow my heart to be open, to allow the Holy Spirit in to lead me and guide me, because I wasn't making good decisions. And there's so much information out there. Reading books, reading the Boundaries books.
Yes.
That was so helpful. The Cloud and Townsend wrote a book, Changes That Heal.
Yes.
Which is also an incredible book.
They're very helpful authors.
They are. They're very helpful. They've written a lot of books, but these are books that when I had small groups in, we went through a lot of their books. And I was learning as I was going. While I was facilitating groups, I was still learning. I don't think you ever stop. I was 52 years old when I joined Celebrate Recovery.
Which was really one of the main turning points to actually feeling like the chains were dropping, right?
That's right.
So 52 years old when you kind of started the journey. Yeah.
And I'm 71 now, so I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever stop. But something else I was going to say about that.
While you're thinking, if that comes back to your mind, you're sure welcome to share it. But I have just another question that came in is referencing that you mentioned Celebrate Recovery. Someone was just wondering, what is that ministry and how might they find one in the Atlanta area?
It's a recovery ministry. It's non-denominational, so it doesn't have to be in any particular denominational church.
Just different churches host the ministry.
Yes. Yeah. There are several in this area. One of them is in Fort O. They have a good size one. I bet if you Googled,
you actually can. I was
Recovery.
just in kind of preparing for this series, I had a chance to talk to one of the leaders in one of our local Celebrate Recovery chapters here.
Yeah.
And the question specifically was asking about Atlanta. So we would just say, yes, if you Google Celebrate Recovery, it's a very common and popular recovery ministry that you can find access to. If you could just Google that and put in Atlanta in there, I'm almost could guarantee that you'll find different chapters all over. Like I said, we're up here in Chattanooga, and I would say that there's probably 5 or so chapters between Chattanooga and North Georgia and Cleveland. So I'm sure you could find one down there. It's, again, a non-denominational Christian 12-step program that many people have really just appreciated. In fact, a few of our guests that will be presenting have gotten to experience the joy of that. So we hope that you can check that out. Before we finish our time here with our Q&A, Vicki, there was one other thing that we did want to highlight is you shared a very personal part of your story, and you did want to share just a couple more comments about how things ended with your mom, because of course you shared how the difficulty of your situation was something you were born into, but you also there's been some points of healing, and so could you just share those thoughts really quickly here?
Yeah, my mother smoked and drank for many, many years, and when she was in her 50s, she was diagnosed with throat cancer. Now, she said for years that she didn't think she had a problem. And that is a very typical thing when you got an addiction. You think you can handle it. She finally, her work, she was a conscientious drinker, so her work finally told her, you're either going to have to go into in-house rehab or you're going to have to go away. You have to not work here anymore. And so she did that, and about a month or two later, she discovered she had throat cancer. And I was in school at the time, and I did a research paper on small cell carcinoma, the kind of cancer she had, throat cancer, and it is usually what causes that is excessive drinking and smoking. So she went through that summer. She was diagnosed in February, and she died in December. While she was still alive, I had opportunity to read scripture to her. And she sat there, or she laid there listening to me. To her, cancer was like a monster. And so that's how we addressed it. But it was a very important time for me to spend with her. After her death, with the help of a counselor, I wrote a number of letters to her, venting all my concerns over the issues that affected me. During my growing up years, I was finally able to let go of the anger that I felt toward her and see her as someone who did the best she could with what she was equipped with. And that's something we have to remember with our parents.
It's a very gracious approach, and one that provides for more healing.
Yeah. So it was an important time. I was so glad to have that time with her.
Absolutely.
To have normal conversations.
Yeah. And to be able to kind of close off a chapter in a more positive way. And there's been continued growth. You also shared that currently life is continuing to go well for you as well.
Yeah. I continue to read and learn and practice with I'm married again. I've been married for about 10 years. And my husband now, actually met him in a recovery group that I was facilitating. And so 2 years after 2 years of friendship, we dated 2 years, and then we got married. And the thing is, he understands about recovery. He didn't have a difficult childhood, but he still has been able to be empathetic and understand, and it's been a very helpful thing.
We're so glad to hear that for you. And Vicki, once again, thank you so much for sharing and coming and just sharing your heart, sharing your story with us. I know it's been helpful for many who are able to watch now and who will watch in the future. So we appreciate it so much. Thank you. We appreciate it. Hey, at this time, we're going to do our giveaway for the Darkness Will Not Overcome book. We were able to look through those who were able to click on the link, the registration link. And so our winner this evening is Lynn. Lynn, we'll contact you by email, and we'll just ask if you want us to mail this to her, if you want to pick it up here at the church. But Lynn, you won. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to each of you who've been able to be part of us this program this evening. We hope that you can continue to tune in at 7:15 Eastern Time. We'll be meeting through the rest of this week through Saturday evening. So once again, if this is helpful for you, we ask that you like it and share it with others so that they can continue to be part of this community that's finding hope and healing. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you tomorrow night. Take care.